Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Warrior Podcast. This is Mark Ellis with Warrior Wealth Solutions, and we're here once again with the owner and CEO of Warrior Wealth Solutions, Chris Jackson. And we also have on tap today Anthony Pagliaro, who is also a member of the Warrior team. And just want to say hi to you guys today.
Hey, Mark. Hello.
As a backup, just want to let you all know that Chris is a military veteran. He's a police officer. He is an entrepreneur who has a mindset that focuses on providing business solutions for multiple industries. And Anthony is a professional mixed martial artist. He's responsible for self-defense and medical solutions. And he is also a volunteer firefighter and EMT. And I am Mark Ellis, copywriter, instructional designer, and all-around, garbage guy that does whatever he has to survive here. And so anyways, today's topic is going to be on different entrepreneurs that have influenced us over the last couple of years, and how they've influenced us, and why we have focused on them. And I'm going to turn this over to the CEO of Warrior Wealth Solutions, Chris Jackson.
Hey, Mark, I think I'm going to let you introduce us on every single podcast. That was a phenomenal job, man.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think you just take the lead from now on. No, but...
Oh, boy, I get to do something finally. Okay.
So how is everyone doing today?
Doing good.
Awesome.
Doing good.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about our go-to entrepreneur / mentor that we look up to, kind of provide you guys, the listeners, with the guys who we grew up listening to and still actually listen to as of today. And back to you, Mark.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go ahead and share. So this is like, bring your dad to the school day kind of thing, but we're going to bring our entrepreneurs to the podcast here. And I'd like to kick this off with the guy that I think influenced me heavily in getting wanting to get involved with business to begin with, because I always thought business didn't look like it was much fun. It seemed like it was a lot of work. And but actually having your own business and having your own entrepreneurial adventures, it's a lot of fun. And the guy that got me kind of keyed into that was a guy by the name of Dan Kennedy. And Daniel S. Kennedy is his name, so don't get him confused with somebody else if you decide to go on and Google him and find out who he was. But Dan Kennedy I call him the Yoda of marketing, because everybody and his mother knows who Dan Kennedy is. And if you don't, you'll eventually figure it out really quick. He's got like 40 or 50 different books on different types of entrepreneurial things, from time management to his most famous books are The Ultimate Sales Letter, because he is a copywriter supreme. And his other book that is a huge hit was also called The Ultimate Marketing Plan. And those two books are great starters. You can get them for dirt on Amazon. You can get the copies of those for, I don't know, $6 or $7. But I picked up my copies at Barnes & Noble when I was in there. It was another Dan Kennedy book sitting on the shelf. And they're not super long reads. You can get them done in a weekend easily. And they'll help out your business tremendously. But I did, the book that got me keyed into him was, I was on the internet, and I think I downloaded this book originally in a PDF format. It was a part of a book, was given out by him. And then I liked the PDF so much, I said, I want to get a copy of this. And basically it's about a 100-page pamphlet called The Ultimate Success Secret by Dan Kennedy, which I think I've had it on my shelf for almost 10 years now. I think it's one of the best things I've ever read about being an entrepreneur. And I can tell you what the success secret is. I will tell you what the whole thing's about. The ultimate success secret, and I'm sure he'd probably tell anybody anyway, the ultimate success secret at the end of the day is taking action. And so he goes into, he said, and he goes even into motion pictures. He said he got the idea watching a movie called Action Jackson, which had Carl Weathers, the former NFL football star. He was in Predator, African and who's just super ripped. The guy's, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
Carl Weathers, right? That's the guy. Well,
Mhm.
he made the movie called Action Jackson, which wasn't a really great movie, but Dan Kennedy said that name just stuck with me all the time. And then he realized one day that, all the movies that you love to watch, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Die Hard, they all have action, the element of action in them. So he said, if you could think of business like that, the more action you take, the better off you're going to be. And just to drive home a point, I'm going to read just a small excerpt of this book, if you don't mind, real quick, and it says here, now Jim Rohn is another guy who's really good and you can watch all of his videos on, I love Jim Rohn. You can watch him on, and his last name's spelled R-O-H-N. You can watch his videos on YouTube, but Dan Kennedy paraphrases him here. He says, my speaking colleague Jim Rohn says that when you look closely at the highly successful individual in any field, you walk away saying to yourself, it's no wonder he's doing so well. Look at everything he's doing. Well, there's a darn good test. If we followed you around for a week and painstakingly recorded how you spent your time, what you did every day to advance your career or business, would we wind up saying to ourselves, it's no wonder he's doing so well. Look at everything he's doing. Now, that's an interesting thing to think about. You don't normally think about that on the surface when you're running a business or you're trying to market something. But that's one thing that, I really hit me about this pamphlet he wrote, this 100-page pamphlet, but it's excellent. And then also I'm going to read this one other section. Now, that was Jim Rohn's words from Dan Kennedy, but here's a section of his book. It says, what kind of action yields the greatest results? Yes, there's one type of action or kind of action that produces maximum results in a minimum length of time, thanks to, in part, to the principle of momentum. Again, it's from Jim Rohn, and the first I heard about this idea was from a thing called the principle of massive action. And the key word is massive, not tiny, not wimpy, not tentative, not toe in the water action, but ponderously slow, not ponderously slow action, but massive action. And so when I started reading this thing, and so every year I got to pull this out whenever I feel myself slowing down. I could pull this 100-page pamphlet out that he wrote. I call it pamphlet because it's a soft cover. I mean, it's not super cheap looking book or anything, but it's just a little book that he wrote that, you could just pick it up and read it and get so much out of just one thing. And so that's how I got addicted to Dan Kennedy. Well, Dan Kennedy practices what he preaches. He is a massive action guy. I mean, he has probably made more information products than anybody. And that's one of the things, two of the areas he's really big on is marketing. Well, actually overall marketing, but the two specialized areas of that would be copywriting, of course, marketing planning, and then also the other area that he's really good at is creating information products and how to do it quickly. And so I highly recommend anybody to check out his books. They're always on Amazon. But he's a guy that really spurred me on in my mind and my heart to want to become an entrepreneur. And still to this day, every time it's just like picking up this thing that he wrote, The Ultimate Success Secret, it has really made me want to become and continues to make me want to take more action and go for the gold ring, and to do it quickly, not to like he says, not to do it slowly, but to actually try to move as quickly as possible in a certain direction. Anyway, that was my guy for today. So I'm going to turn it over to Anthony now, see if he's got somebody that he'd like to bring up.
Well, he's not really a big person I've looked up to, over the years, but for the past 2 years, I've actually been watching him and using his videos. His name is Trent Shelton, and whenever Marcus and the sports people listen to this, they'll probably realize who he is. He is an ex-NFL player. He was drafted out of Baylor College. He actually never played a game. He was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts right out of college. He made the team. He went the whole training camp, and then he was put on the practice squad. So he never actually got to play a real game. He was just always on the practice squad. From there, he actually got dropped by the Colts. He spent probably about a year or 2 years, doing his life thing. He turned to alcohol, to sex, to drugs, partying, clubs, doing things that, normal kids would do and starting to fall down in a slump because he had gotten dropped from the Colts and, his big NFL career. He later got a call from the Seattle Seahawks, who actually asked him to come play for him. again, he went through the training camp, he went through their whole system, and again, he was put on the practice squad. So his dreams of playing in the NFL were starting to kind of diminish, and he wasn't sure if it was something that he wanted. On September 25th, when he was playing for the Seattle Seahawks, he had a son, which kind of turned his life around. He was looking into different ways of, he wanted to be a father. He didn't want to see or have his son grow up the way, he was growing up and getting dropped from this and getting let down. So he decided to do something different. So he started Rehab Time. It's a Christian nonprofit. He does YouTube videos galore, Facebook videos galore. He just talks about life, and different circumstances in life. Love, hate, focus, determination. I've posted you, Chris, in it a couple times. I don't think I've posted or tagged you in it, Mark. But his videos are awesome.
Huh. What was his name again?
Trent Shelton.
Trent Shelton. Okay.
He gets pretty much 50 million weekly visits or weekly views. Every post he does, every live video he does, and that's just through social media. He does go out and do public speaking. He does go out, and talk to people and talk to kids, but he does it mostly through YouTube and through Facebook. So going from an ex-NFL player, having it all, having the money, never actually really playing a game, to going to where he wants to, support his son and do everything for his family. So he had to come up with something, and that's why he developed Rehab Time.
Right.
And that he's just a really, I don't know how to put it. His videos, they really hit heart every time you listen to them.
Wow. Huh. Well, he's been there. I mean, when you have somebody that's been in, a tough situation, and then they've come out of it from adversity, it's always and people like those stories too. It's like a Rocky story,
Yeah, it is. It's really, I was watching his YouTube video, and he was explaining, I think it was CNN that actually did like what do they call those, a biography or autobiography on him.
Right.
Where they sat down and asked questions about his life and that's how I got most of the information, was through that interview they did with him. And, just listening to his story and how, he wanted his big dream, play football all his life, and then he'd make it, and then he'd get cut, and then he'd make it, and then he'd get cut.
Right.
And then just, he'd build him back up, and then it'd tear him back down, and then build him back up and tear him back down. He played for 3 different NFL teams, but actually never got to play a real game.
Wow.
He was always put on practice squads. The hopes of actually playing in the NFL were start and finish every time, he got sent to the practice squad.
Wow.
So
kind of reminds you of that Moody, about the guy that wanted to be on the on a Notre Dame team. Yeah, that's
I know that movie well.
Wow. Rudy. Which brings us to, now we're going to jump over to Chris. Now we're going to come back to these guys in a minute and talk about some of these different principles. But if you're finished, Anthony, I'm going to move on over to Chris.
Yep, go right ahead.
Let him dive in with who he brought to school today.
Good. I have to say mine is Tony Robbins. For the fact that I myself, this is probably one of the reasons I got into what we're doing now, is that he really opened my mind up into thinking what I really needed to do to help others. And I struggled with business the first couple go rounds, and the one, I kind of had a success with it. I sold it, but at the same time it was just down in the slumps trying to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life. And I think that Tony, Mr. Robbins, really helped with that by listening to all what he had to say in his, his podcast, his website, and even his YouTube channel. And basically a little bit about Tony is, he brings out, in a unique way, changes the way people think. with his life coaching and his seminars and even his self-help books, such as The Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. Basically during his seminars, he teaches a multitude of people, whether it's young adolescents all the way up to even successful entrepreneurs, just basically the way they need to re-engage themselves and their decision making. So that's one of the reasons I picked Tony Robbins, is just for the astronomical factors that he brings in when it basically changes your mind setting.
Wow. So that's another Cinderella story, right? I mean, that's a guy that started with nothing.
Yeah, I think he started at like 17 years old, and it took him, 17 is really young to get into public speaking, and you got to commend the guy for that. But it was just a constant struggle, and now he's in his 50s, and he's just phenomenal. I don't know of anybody that doesn't know who he is, and if they don't, then they definitely need to look into him.
Yeah, my wife and I looked him up. He's on track to be a billionaire, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he is.
Considering it's just a success. I'm sorry. I was going to say, go ahead, Anthony. What'd you say?
I was saying there's always posts or always different little, snippets on Facebook or on Instagram of him doing a little talk, or how, a person reacted to his talk, and he's always on there, always.
And his Feed the Children, it basically 101 million meals to children, families, and seniors through his Feeding America's network is just phenomenal. That's a great mission of what he's all about.
Yeah, I remember back in the 70s when I first heard about him, and he always told this story, and he was just getting started. It was about 1975 when I first heard about the guy, and he always told this story, and he still tells this story to this day. I saw him on TV not recently, and he's still telling the story. I don't know if he had a copywriter work with him on it or what, but he said that he was washing the thing I remember the most was he said, I was so poor I was washing my dishes in my bathtub.
Yep.
Wow.
And I sometimes think, okay, is he for real on this or what? Because, who doesn't have at least a sink in their place? Who would wash their dishes in their bathtub anyway? That's kind of, you have to have a really clean bathtub. But I always laugh at that. But but it's stuck in my mind all these years. I never forgot it, so I guess it worked. But but it's kind of interesting like that. But I was just thinking of, when we talk about these Cinderella stories and all these guys that came from adversity, I was just, I don't know if you were around, Anthony, but we were talking about, I think Chris and I, when we did the first podcast a while back, we were talking about Mike Lindell, who is the My Pillow guy. You see him on TV all the time, the My Pillow guy. And if you type in Mike Lindell into Google, you'll see a mugshot of him because he was arrested for drug use and drug dealing. He was living out of his car, I think, and he literally was all strung out on meth or one of those things, really bad. It was and I just Googled him, and for one of the first pictures that, other than him hugging a pillow picture, is he put these. By the way, he's putting these pictures up to show where he came from. It's not like somebody's being malicious and sticking them up, mugshots. But he's got a picture of him holding a pillow, and then in the next picture, right next to it, he's got a picture of him with his mugshot there, and where he came from, and he's on track. Now, I was telling, I don't know who I talked to about this last, but the interesting thing about this guy is about, my wife and I kept seeing his commercials are constantly on. They're all the time. I'm thinking, man, this guy must be making some serious money. So I decided to check him out on the internet. And I saw, he's got $1 million lawsuit against him for some sort of claim he made about the pillow or something. I forget what it was. And I'm thinking, oh, this poor guy's going to lose his shirt and everything. And then I decided to look a little bit more up on him. And his net worth is going to be, he is also on track this year to be close to $1 billion, billionaire. So like this stupid lawsuit that they're throwing at him about some claim he made, it's not even going to register on his brain probably, because he's on track to be a billionaire from the My Pillow product. It's amazing to think that he created this product and he's selling it, and he's going to be a billionaire, and he was living out of his car a decade ago, I guess it was.
Well, I don't know if you guys know that show, Shark Tank. Look at the people that are
Yep.
always on there, starting from nothing and then all of a sudden having, 1.2 million or, a
Yeah.
couple thousand.
It takes is that drive.
Yeah.
You got to jump in there and just do it.
Yep.
I mean, there's no excuse. I mean, you can have all the excuses in the world to yourself, but that's not gonna get you anywhere. You just got to do it.
No, it's not.
Yep, that's and it's a commonality, and it's like I was saying earlier with the Dan Kennedy thing. It's all a matter of how much action you're going to take in your life, I guess. It seems to me that that seems to be a key ingredient, but there again too, I always question these things too, because I am an objective person, but I always think, well, if you take action in 95 different directions, though, it might not be so good. So I guess it depends. I guess it depends on if it's kind of a focused action, maybe. Because if you're focused on like 95 different things, I always tell my wife that when a company diversifies, it diversifies. And a good example of this was, I could point out a couple business examples that sticks out in my head, but like Sears, for example.
Wow.
Kmart, and I thought, man, that was dumb. Because Kmart was getting totally dominated anyway, and they went and they bought into. They were already a diversified company. They were the first catalog company way before anybody even thought about it. They had the biggest catalog in the whole world, and now they bought into all these other things, and they're so spread out, so thin that they're just trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see where you could take a ton of action in about 950 different directions. That might not be such a good idea either. I mean, as long as it's focused on one or two things, maybe, a lot of action on. So if you're gonna do, if you're gonna be an author, just focus on but if you start working on being an eyeglass doctor and everything else, it might not work out so well. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I totally agree with that because like with my sport, being in the mixed martial arts world, there's always the fitness person that's out there. I mean, look at all the fitness ads. Look at all the the strength and conditioning ads. There's constantly people coming up with different ways to work out or different ways to get in shape or different ways to eat right. So my sport, you can't really go in a certain direction because you're going to have that competition.
Right.
Knowing which way to go or how to go, picking a career and trying to stick with it. I wanted to give up, after I did my first two pro fights. I lost my first one, and then I won my second one. And I think that second win actually boosted me, saying, you know what, I can do this. My first pro fight was against a guy that was from Brazil, and he was 16-0 in Brazil, which I didn't know that until the night of the fight.
Wow.
The promoter lied to me and said, he's not that good. He's not well known. Well, yeah, he's not well known in the States.
Oh, wow.
So this was my very first pro fight. So it was my pro debut fight. I lasted the whole first round with him, and nobody thought I was going to because of, his record and his training over in Brazil. And, that second round, I was exhausted. But
and he was
after
just
I got done,
just another day to me, right?
yeah. And after I got done, even the promoter, I mean, I had people coming up to me saying, we didn't think you were going to last that long. What made you do it? I said, hey, it's a fight. I'm in here to win. I don't care who it is or how long they've been training. They can be 20-0, they can be 20-1. I'm still going to put my heart and soul into it. And I think that having people come up to me afterwards is what pushed me to keep going.
Right.
So yeah, you definitely have to find something that drives you, that passion.
Wow.
It's kind of a focused passion too, because Tony Robbins, he's the, when you get to Tony Robbins, he's totally focused on self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you say self-improvement coach, the first name that comes up, it'll be his name. I mean, he's definitely dominated that industry.
He even defined the terminology life coaching.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that he basically created that term. I mean, just for all what he's done, then everybody started using it. But I think he was actually one of the main ones.
Yeah. But but there again too, you got a guy like Donald Trump, and I'm not being political at all. I'm not talking about his presidency, but I'm talking about is the fact that the guy is now there's a guy that's involved in, like, I mean, predominantly was real estate, and he's of course that's what you primarily think of, but he's had so many different types of businesses. Or look at Mark Cuban and some of these people that are on Shark Tank. They got like 90 different businesses. And I often wonder, maybe they're just using the same focus pattern over and over again when they start these different things, or they work on these different types of businesses. I mean, but it seems like to me that they're kind of diversified in what they do. They do public speaking, and they talk about their in the case of Barbara Corcoran, she's doing real estate herself. You just wonder, how. But Cuban too. I mean, gosh, he's got all these technology businesses and things that he does, and he's running a sports team. What's the sport team he runs in? I can't remember.
Is it a baseball team or a football team? Isn't it one of those two?
It's basketball.
Where's basketball? It's a basketball.
It's a basketball?
Yeah, it's a basketball team. I just can't remember which one it is. But yeah, I mean, they're involved in all these different types of things. You wonder.
Dallas Mavericks. I was trying to think. I thought it was that. I didn't want to say the wrong one, but yeah, Dallas Mavericks.
I mean, gosh, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, that's, you're managing a sports team like that, or you're the owner, and of course, I just don't know how they do all that. I really don't. I sit there and I look at some of these billionaire types, and I just go, wow, how can they do? What's your day like? You get up and you're just running from the time you get up. Of course, they'll even tell you this though. They work 16, 18 hours a day. I mean, I remember a lady on Shark Tank one time. She came in there arrogantly saying something to them like to the effect of, I work 8 to 10 hours a day on my business, and I'm not just going to hand it over to one of you guys, something like that to him. And Robert there, Hershevik there, the guy that's got the technology company, he said, well, I work almost 18 hours a day, so I can tell people like you where to get off, I mean, to get out of here isn't to get off, but to get out of here, sort of, I mean, tell you guys what to do, so it's like, but I mean, they do, they put in the hours. No question about it.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So anybody else want to add about this before we move on to something else, or does anybody?
I think that back to what you was talking about, Mark, real quick, when you said take action. That kind of reminds me of the success formula that a lot of these, like Tony Robbins uses, and a lot of these other life coaches and motivational speakers, is the E plus R equals O. The event and then a response equals your outcome. So how you respond to certain events in your life, creates certain outcomes. So that all falls back to, if you're not happy or you're not succeeding, then change your responses to those events. Take action, take a different kind of action. Right.
Got to kind of refocus and focus on a different, sometimes you have to focus on a different thing and move in a different direction. I mean, there's just certain things that some people can do that others can't. And that's not saying that you can't make it in something. It's just saying that, and the thing of it is too, is if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, you're afraid to do that sort of thing, you could still be the best, employee at a particular niche even, it doesn't mean you couldn't be the linchpin at a company, at a particular thing, if you're really good at multimedia and you can get hired to do multimedia stuff, then be the best multimedia guy out there. I think a mistake a lot of people make these days, though, there is really in America now. It used to be less, I think, but there seems to be no company loyalty now. It's all we're in a different economic environment with businesses and things, and so I think that the idea, I guess the reason why we focus on entrepreneurism so much is because that's something that if you establish yourself in a business and you're good at what you do and you've got business coming in, you're not at risk like the guy is that's working for a company. And I always used to tell my students, because I taught a lot of high school students, I said, well, you always ought to at least try to get a trade on your own. And that way you at least have something to fall back on. If you have to, you'll at least have a trade or a skill that you can market, or you could possibly start your own business if you're back at something as well. You don't want to work for somebody, or you're going to lose your job, But there is no company loyalty anymore. I mean, there's companies getting bought out all the time now, and it's a much more volatile market with jobs than it's ever been that I can recall. But I don't know. It's just me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is. I agree.
I mean, you just You just get going with the mindset that you're going to be there for 20 years now,
There's always that one person that wants to do bigger and better things than you, and I think they can make that business, run smoother or run better than what you can do it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I used to tell my students, be a linchpin, be the person that how to do like 10 different things there that are, that are within what you're doing. But if you're the guy, again, a good example, I'll just go back to multimedia. If you're the guy that knows how to set up all the projectors and everything that they need and how to do the PowerPoints and everything, and other people at your organization, and there are organizations like that, they'll have a meeting. If they couldn't do without a certain person running that stuff. So if you were like the linchpin and they really need you, you're really not going to have the opportunity to get stepped over or moved or downsized as quick as somebody that once they realize that, hey, this guy is a valuable team player, we can't do without him. Once you've worked yourself into a position like that, at least if you're not going to start your own business, try to be the linchpin of where you work at.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you're going to be a janitor, be the best janitor ever. If you're going to be the broom sweeper, be the best broom sweeper ever. You got to find that niche that makes you happy.
Yeah. Be the janitor that knows how to fix the air conditioners when they go down.
Exactly.
And that might take some extra training. But if you're working as a janitor somewhere and you know how to fix a certain aspect without him having to call the air conditioner guy, expensive guy in all the time, if there's a pipe you can solder back together or whatever, and and you know how to do it, then you're going to be more valuable than a guy that just goes and cleans toilets.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get certification like that, you might want to let your boss know about it. Hey, I got certified in that. That would help. So, all right. Well, are there any last thoughts you all like to share with our audience on this subject of entrepreneurism, taking action, and kind of modeling yourself after some of these different people that you see and read about? The other thing I was going to mention about this was the reason, and one of the reasons why we're talking about this subject is because you have access to these people without having to spend $80 million to go to one of their seminars. You could always go buy their books and read up on them. And now with the video on YouTube, and a lot of times they put this stuff out there for free. You have videos on YouTube. You have different courses you can take online. We're going to be offering one here at Warrior Wealth Solutions on getting started in entrepreneurism and how we use our principles to help you guide you through the process of starting your own business. Whether it's online or bricks and mortar, we'll help you start that process, and we'll be also helping you out as you go through the coursework. So that'll be offered up pretty soon. We're still in the phases of finalizing the content for that. But is there anything you want to add to that, Chris?
No, just make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and joining in on our podcast each week. And also feel free to hit that Ask Chris button, which will allow you to ask your questions, give us feedback, and if there's anything that you would like to listen to, that allows you to basically comment and let us know what you'd be interested in.
All right. And so, Anthony, you have anything, any last shots you'd like to take here?
No, I think we're just here to help people and to enjoy doing what we're doing. I've always, going back into the entrepreneur and business side of it, I've never been the person to, I can't say this, but want to make the money or, be the billionaire or be the millionaire. I think having someone smile or someone laugh or someone send you a text, like I got when I helped that child, that kid, saying, hey, you're like another brother, or hey, you're like another family member. I think that means more to me than having the money come in because I helped that person. I've always been that way. I want to make money, yes, because I have to support my family, I have to support my kids in that aspect, but at the same time, knowing that someone's benefiting from what we're doing or from what I'm doing, I think means more to me than having the $100 paycheck or having the $1,000 paycheck. So I'm just letting everybody know that we're here to help, we're here to do what we can for you to make you smile, to have that push, that strength to move on, the courage. Means more to me than actually making that money.
I agree.
All right. Sounds good. Well, this has been Chris Jackson, Anthony Pagliano, and Mark Elmo Ellis with Warrior Wealth Solutions. Stay tuned for the next podcast, or come back for the next podcast, I should say. Come back for the next podcast, which will be out shortly. We will be discussing how to separate yourself from everybody else in your business, how to make yourself stand out from other businesses. We hope you'll be here. So once again, thank you so much for joining in on our podcast, and we'll see you next time.